There are a few things a small town pastor expects to be woken up for in the middle of the night: a sick parishioner, a deathbed confession, maybe, if the congregation really plans poorly, help moving a couch. But what a small town pastor does not expect is a phone call from local authorities asking him to come out to the countryside to minister to the dying victims of a plane crash, only to discover the victims are not human. Welcome to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, spring 1941, the night a pastoral care visit went wildly off script.
Welcome to the Parsonage Files. Join Pastor Rick and his brother Rob each week as they explore the odd, funny, and mysterious stories from the world of faith and church history. Let's get started. Here is Pastor Rick.
All right, welcome to the Parsonage Files. My name is Rick, and with me is my brother Rob. I have a story for you today about a pastoral care visit that goes totally off the rails. In fact, one could say it's even out of this world.
I see what you did there, Pastor Rick.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so come with me to Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Wait. Isn't that where Rush Limbaugh is from?
It is. That is the home of one Rush Limbaugh. But we are going there in the spring of 1941. Reverend William Huffman was at home when the phone rang. The kind of ring that immediately tells you your evening plans are over.
Yeah, when that phone rings at 9, you're done.
Pretty much. When your phone rings after 9 p.m., something bad is coming.
No one's calling with good news.
Right. Something bad has happened because people know, do not call me after 9.
Pastor is asleep.
Pastor is asleep. So it turns out local authorities were on the line. There had apparently been some sort of crash outside of town, an aircraft they assumed, and it looked like people were hurt, possibly dead, and they needed a pastor to come and provide some pastoral care to those who were injured.
Okay.
Huffman didn't argue. He just hung up the phone, grabbed his coat, told his family he had some work for Jesus to do.
Absolutely.
Yep. And he was told that a car would be by shortly to pick him up. He was, of course, expecting a police patrol car, but instead he was picked up by an unmarked car with a plain clothed man.
Like a Men in Black scenario?
Well, sort of. Again, he was a little surprised. He was expecting some sort of police squad car or an ambulance, but nope. Just a guy in a car and no sirens, and all the way out to the crash site. No small talk either.
Okay. As an introvert, I'm kind of partially okay with the no small talk, but it's kind of that weird situation, right? When you're in the car and you're like, how did I end up in this situation? I didn't really ask for this.
See, that's one of the reasons I would never take an Uber, because I don't
want this weird small
One,
talk.
I was taught as a child, don't get in strange people's cars.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger. And two, I don't want to have to talk to a stranger driving. And that's also why I wouldn't want to drive Uber, because I don't want a stranger in my car.
But it's like, and I'm sure you found yourself in these situations too, where you're like, how did I get myself into this situation?
Well,
I want to be somewhere other than here.
That is exactly what sort of situation Huffman found himself in. One of those situations where you kind of recognize and realize that I didn't sign up for this, but somehow
Here we are.
And so as they were rolling out of town, Huffman noticed a glow on the horizon, firelight flickering through the trees. Apparently whatever had gone down, it hadn't landed gently. So when they arrive at the scene was already kind of a spectacle. There were a few families clustered at the roadside trying to see what was going on. There were some kids half asleep in the back seats of some cars that apparently had pulled over, or even a couple of little dogs running around underfoot. There were firefighters, EMS, police, even a reporter or two snapping photographs.
This is so bad to say, but it's typical small town 1941. Nothing happens. When something does happen, everyone turns out.
I got to tell you, man, in small town America in 1941, if something crashes, everyone's an eyewitness, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's going.
Absolutely.
Everyone's going. Yeah. So Huffman was guided through this small crowd by a unnamed man toward the wreckage.
And so far, everything is relatively normal as a plane crash
it
can
doesn't. He can see debris, but he can't really tell what it was that crashed.
be. Okay.
He assumes it's an airplane, and then
As you would.
and then he saw the bodies, and there were 3 of them, small, still, lying on the ground. And for a split second, his stomach dropped because he thought that they were children.
Oh, God.
Then he got a little bit closer, and then he realized that they weren't children.
Aliens, I assume.
In fact, they weren't even human. They were indeed aliens. They were hairless, gray-skinned, heads that were too large, limbs that were way too slight, eyes oversized and wrong in a way he just couldn't articulate,
Stereotypical grays.
but couldn't stop thinking about. Yep, they were what we would later label as the Greys. 2 of these, I don't know, do we call them people?
I don't. Do you call them people? Are they people?
You know what? I'm going to call them people, right? You know,
People are people.
people are people, so why should it be you and I should get along so awfully? All right, moving on.
That was smooth as silk, Pastor Rick.
Smooth.
Smooth.
Yeah, they don't call me Reverend Smooth for nothing.
Or at least not. You got multiple reasons for that one.
I am. They don't call me the coolest pastor in Groveport for nothing.
The coolest pastor at Groveport United Methodist, at least.
I'm not even the coolest pastor at Groveport United Methodist. I'm the only pastor.
Oh, so let's just summarize. So he turns up to the plane crash. He sees bodies, and they're actually alien bodies.
They are. 2 of them, according to Reverend Huffman, were clearly dead. The 3rd wasn't. It was still alive, but barely. And it was twitching, and it was struggling, and it was in obvious distress. Huffman didn't know what this thing was. He didn't know where it came from. He didn't even really know how something like this could even exist. But he knew suffering when he saw it, and he knew that he needed to do something. So he defaulted to his instinct, and he knelt down next to it, and he prayed. Not because he understood what was going on, but because that's what pastors do when words fail and pain doesn't.
I feel bad for these aliens.
I know, I feel bad.
I know that's not what the story is supposed to be about, but I got like sympathy for it.
I know. Far away, he's struggling, he can't talk.
He's alone. Wow, this is an uplifting tale we have today.
So far. But the story, it gets better. So whatever it was, it died right there, with human hands folded nearby and a human prayer spoken over it.
The way God intended it.
Well, yeah, I kind of like that, because so often in these stories, the pastor is always pictured as the bad guy.
It is in modern times.
Yeah, the bad guy who doesn't like the alien. And here you have a pastor who is reaching out and trying to help someone, even if that person is different.
Not a person.
Not a person, right? Only after he had finished his prayer did Huffman look up and notice that there was a crashed craft nearby. As he looked at this wreckage, he noticed that this wasn't an airplane. There were no wings, there was no propeller, there was no tail. It was a small, disc-shaped object, split open like a cracked shell. Metallic, smooth.
Your typical UFO.
Your typical UFO. So he gets up and he wanders over and he looks inside, and what he sees are chairs absolutely not designed for human bodies.
Okay.
They were small molded chairs attached to the floor. There were panels, there were gauges, there were some controls arranged with a very clear intent that this is how you controlled that craft. Along the interior walls were symbols etched into the surface. But the writing he couldn't decipher, but he later said that it resembled hieroglyphics, but really from no known language that he'd ever learned or ever heard about.
So just reflecting, this is very similar to the description that would happen, 6 years later at Roswell.
Correct.
Hieroglyphic-like writing, small vehicles, small bodies.
Right. Right. And Reverend Huffman said that this was technology like he had never seen before. Now, all this,
Are reverends big in the technology, Pastor Rick?
we are huge consumers of technology. I am on the cutting edge. Some might even say the bleeding edge of technology.
You are on
I
the
mean, just the other day.
You were just at Consumer Electronics Show, huh?
Just the other day, I bought my first DVD. Mhm. And just the other day, I upgraded to an iPhone 4.
Did you use Ask Jeeves to help you with your sermon?
I use Ask Jeeves, Dogpile,
Yeah, all the classics.
all the classics. Yeah, who needs Google? So none of this technology was anything he had recognized. But very soon after Reverend Huffman had looked inside this UFO, uniformed military officials arrived. And the mood around this crash all of a sudden became very, very dark.
Man, this is the story all the time of UFO crashes, isn't it?
Voices lowered, the crowd was pushed back, cameras disappeared, people were pulled aside and spoken to quietly. Huffman got his own briefing. He was told that this didn't happen, you didn't see anything, and this is important, you will never talk about what you saw here again. They said it was for national security. Now,
They always say it's for national
Right.
security.
Now, you remember, this was before Pearl Harbor. This was 6 years, even before Roswell, before flying saucers were even a thing. Nobody had ever heard of such a thing. Before pop culture knew what a flying saucer was,
He was describing
or
it.
what the beings inside were supposed to look like.
And yet he had the
So
description.
here we are, 6 years before all that, and a pastor prayed over something not human on a dark roadside in Missouri. And whatever fell from the sky that night was quietly, efficiently erased. So that is the story I have for you of the Cape Girardeau UFO crash. Did you do a little bit of research into this for us?
I did. And first off, as we mentioned earlier, Cape Girardeau, home to one Rush Limbaugh. So if you just Google Cape Girardeau, it's a lot about him. So, but I did dig into this, and the story's actually really fascinating what happened after this. So, as you said, he saw something he couldn't explain. His worldview had been shaken. He heads home.
Yeah.
And so, as you just mentioned, he was told, do not say anything. And I mean, I'm not sure what I would do. What would you do, Pastor? Would you say something when you got home?
Probably. I don't know.
You'd probably, I mean, I'm thinking if it was me, I would at least have the intention of not saying anything. But when you're traumatized, you need to share that information.
Yeah, and it isn't like you're sharing anybody's personal medical information or personal counseling information. This is, I saw aliens.
Right. So the story goes that Reverend Huffman heads home, comes in the house. It's, sometime 3, 4 in the morning. He's all goobered up, right? And his wife, Floy, they don't they don't name people like they used to back in the day. Floy comes down and she's like, sees that he's kind of distraught, asks him what happened. She's thinking he was just at an accident. Who knows what kind of horrible scene he just saw. He's clearly upset. And so she's expecting when the words to come out of his mouth to be about bodies, human bodies from a plane crash. And wow, was she
Was she in for?
She was in for a treat. So he begins to tell his wife what happened. And so he starts relaying the story to her. And as he's telling her, at this time, they Floyd and William have 2 adult sons, and they're staying there. It's Easter time. It's a little unclear if it's actually Easter or just Easter adjacent time, but
Easterish.
But their 2 adult sons were there, and their very pregnant daughter-in-law was spending the night.
Okay.
So the sons can hear the talking, knew that their dad had gone out, and they both had came downstairs to hear what their dad had to say. The one son goes like, "Let me go grab, whatever his wife's name is. I'll bring her down." And this is when they knew things had gone off the rails, because Reverend Huffman's like, "No, do not bring her down. She's 8.5 months pregnant, and what I'm about to say could send her into labor." So whenever everyone prefaces something with "what I'm about to share with you
Could send you into
could send
premature
your wife
labor.
into premature labor," you're about to get a heck of a story. So Reverend Huffman begins his story, tells them what had happened. He explains the whole thing to them. He finishes up, and he stops, and they're just staring at him. I mean, like deer in a headlight. And he's like, "Anyone have any questions?" They're like, "We don't even know what question we would even start to ask, Dad." And Reverend Huffman's like, yeah, same here. So Reverend Huffman made clear to everybody, "I told you, I wasn't supposed to tell you. Please do not share this. Our lives might depend on not sharing this information." And so his boys are like, "Okay, no." So that after that dramatic evening, they try to go back to life as normal. And by all accounts, the town of Cape Girardeau was kind of all
Worked up over this
this crash.
So did anybody else report seeing these aliens?
Well, they do, and in a second I'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, and as we had mentioned earlier, there were people had come out to see the crash. There were firefighters, paramedics, local law enforcement. So there were people there, and people talk.
Yeah.
So what apparently had happened was everybody that was there had been rounded up and given the same speech of, "For America, for national defense, do not say anything." But people talk. And so there was like this uneasiness over the town for the next couple weeks. There are even reports that men in black, guys in dark suits, nondescript cars were hanging around the town all week for afterwards, watching people just in a diner, just making sure that everyone in the town knew that they would need to keep quiet. So
the story that we have of Reverend Huffman, how did we get that story?
okay, so that's good too. So
Now, how I got it was from the internet.
I did, yes.
So eventually, somehow, it got from him to the internet. How did that happen?
Well, it comes from his granddaughter, Charlotte, in the mid 80s. So we're talking 30
years past.
30 years past. So she contacted a UFO investigator, Leonard Stringfield.
Okay.
That name might sound familiar. If you listen to our episode we did on the Norwood UFOs, he was the investigator there. He was tied to UFO sightings and the myth around Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton,
He was the
Ohio.
one that kind of popularized that.
Popularized it. So he's a UFO popularizer. Is that a word, Pastor Rick?
Yeah, that's probably a good word for it.
And so
an
investigator, author. And so he had been contacted by Charlotte Mann in the 80s. She's like, "I have this story. I think it'd be great for your new book that's coming up." And so they started to work together to flesh out this story, get the details, and eventually the story itself would emerge in 1991 in a book he wrote. But the story that Charlotte Mann, again, the granddaughter of Reverend William Huffman, has a little more details and what kind of happened after that week, right? So we have the story of what happened at the crash, what happened the week after when the men in black were there. But
So just to stop there real quick. So did Reverend Huffman ever find out what happened to the aliens? Because he left the crash site, they were still there.
Well, the rumor is they were taken to Wright Field eventually. They were first taken to the local air base, which is, I don't know, 60 miles south. I think it's the Sykeston Army Airfield at the time. Do you have different information on that?
I don't have any information on that.
Oh, I thought maybe Pastor Rick had some type of I thought you had some type of insight, and I was like, I don't know. So the story was that the bodies were taken to the mess was cleaned up, and then the bodies were taken to Sykeston, and then later to the Foreign Materials Command, which is housed at Wright Field, which is now Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton.
Obviously, it all comes right here to Dayton, Ohio.
It does, and that's where Stringfeld focused most of his investigation. So this kind of fell right into
what he was interested
right where he was interested in, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so the story goes from Charlotte Mann, the granddaughter, was that life in Cape Girardeau settled down after this. A few weeks later, doorbell rang at her grandparents' house. Reverend Huffman opened the door, and a gentleman by the name of Garland Fraunenberger, Franny to his friends, as you might imagine, but who's a photographer for the Southeast Missourian, was at the door.
Can you say that one more time for me?
Garland D. Fraunenberger or Franny?
Good. Garland D. Fraunenberger. You can't make that name up. That's not a made-up name.
If you were making a name up, why would you go with that? And he legit was a photographer, a photojournalist, I suppose is what you're supposed to call them now. But for the Southeast Missouri.
Nobody's a cameraman. They're a photojournalist. Yeah.
To be honest, that's an assumption that it was him, because she didn't really have a name. She just said the local photographer for the paper.
And that's who was the local photographer at the time for the paper. Okay.
Correct. So by deduction, and it would make sense because Fraunenberger was a member of the Red Star Baptist Church, which is where Reverend Huffman was the pastor.
So they would have had a relationship.
They would have had a relationship. So this is not out of the question. It kind of all fits together that he would do this. So the story she has is that a few weeks later, Franny turns up at her grandfather's house, comes in, and they start to have a conversation, and Franny's like, I was out there at the accident scene. I saw you out there too, and I have a picture. And so Reverend Huffman's like, you have a what? And Franny's like, yeah, I was out there for my taking pictures of what I thought was a plane accident. They confiscated my official camera for the newspaper, but what they didn't know was I had a personal camera in my side bag, and I used that to take a couple pictures. And so
that is a real photographer when they have a backup camera strapped to them in case the real one gets confiscated by the authorities.
That's how you know you're a journalist.
That right there is a journalist.
And so he had taken a couple pictures. He'd gone home, developed them, and he was feeling really uncomfortable about the picture that he had because it had pictures of the three aliens. And he wanted to give the picture to somebody else that he knew he could trust, one as a security blanket that basically, if something happened to me, someone else already has this and they're going to tell what happened to me if something
So
tragic.
Is this the negative or is this a print?
He had a print. He took a print, but Franny had the negative and then a copy himself at his house.
Okay.
And so he basically, for twofold, was one, wanted to have someone else have a copy of this in case he went down. There was someone else to say, hey, I've got this too. And then secondly, he, because it was so life altering, he wanted someone that he trusted to be able to see this and kind of share the burden of having of this picture of an alien. And he trusted Reverend Huffman. Obviously, he was a pastor.
Yeah.
So you can see that. And a pastor, as a pastor, people trust you. And you can become, it's more comforting. You're a comforting figure in their life. I mean, I'm not saying you specifically, other pastors, but theoretically, you're a comforting figure.
I couldn't imagine me being that comforting in somebody's life, but you
get where I'm going at.
But I get what you're going at,
right? So
absolutely.
So Reverend Huffman's like, okay, I'll hold this picture for you. And so this picture was at Floyd's and Williams' house for 4 or 5 years. Family story goes that the Reverend and his wife were feeling uncomfortable with it. They just felt like they were always being watched. They just really didn't like it around. And so their oldest son, Guy, who is the father of Charlotte Mann, who's telling this story. So Guy Huffman, the son, is like, I'll take it. It's cool. And so he took the picture off their hands.
So did Charlotte, the granddaughter
Yeah.
who made this all public, did she actually see the photo?
She did once her dad got it, right? So her dad had this picture, thinking it's super cool. And so now we're talking, it's the late 50s.
Right.
Or early 60s, somewhere in there. And so Guy Huffman, the son of Reverend William, has this picture, and he used to apparently like to pull it out as a party trick, basically. Charlotte said she remembered as a little kid that people would gather around and he'd be like, "Hey, look what I got." And it's a picture. And so this picture, I did not share what the picture was. So basically this picture is of two military police officers holding a body of one of the Greys by the armpits, basically up in the air, getting a paranormal selfie with it,
Like you would with a deer?
like a hunting trophy. Yeah,
Like a hunting trophy?
yeah. Wildly inappropriate with another sentient life form. But
Have you ever seen the pictures from like the 1920s of like Bonnie and Clyde?
yeah,
Where all of the federal agents are like posing with them like that, like
exact. Where apparently appropriateness kind of went out the window. Yeah. So that's what we have. So that's what's on this picture.
Okay.
And so Guy Huffman would bring this picture out and show it to people. And the family would talk about it. When they would get together for holidays, I would discuss it with his dad and mom, and it was kind of a family thing. It's family secret. It wasn't shared outside of the house. It was kind of on the down low, but they all kind of just, this was a family thing. There was and the kids, which would be Charlotte Mann and her cousins and whatnot, that generation didn't really know exactly what it was that they were talking about, but knew the parents had there was a story.
So it was a family story that got passed around with the adults, but being a kid, she wasn't privileged to it.
Absolutely. And then her dad kind of would bring it out as a party favor, like, "Hey, want to see something?" So I guess he was a little more loose with the lips, but in general, it was just a family thing, and a few drinks and
yeah.
Hey, you want to see an alien?
A few drinks and out comes the alien picture.
Hey, you want to see an alien? So yeah, it's a family story, right? So Charlotte says she's not really 100% sure what happened to the picture, but when she just started doing research into it and then some memories and talking to her family and whatnot, what she believes happened was that there was a family friend, and his name was Walter Wayne Fisk. Anytime the middle name's Wayne.
Walter Wayne Fisk.
Yeah.
So you always have to watch out for anybody with the middle name Wayne.
Wayne's, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Walter Wayne Fisk, what she believes happened to the picture, because in her mind it just disappeared and they quit talking about it, is that to the best of everybody's knowledge is that Walter Wayne Fisk was a friend of her dad, Guy's. And he was at a party one night at her parents' house, and they pulled the picture out as they do. And Fisk was an amateur photographer. It's like, "Hey, that's..." And also a UFO buff, right? UFO buff. And it's like, "Hey, that's a cool picture. I'd like me a copy of that. Can I take it with me? And I've got a photo lab in my house. I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'll bring it back." And Guy says, "Sure, sounds like a plan." So, yes.
That doesn't sound realistic.
That you'd have a picture of an alien and this
all right, so let's back up.
That
you
you
have a
whip it out?
picture of an alien, and you're just going to let Roy Fisk take your one and only proof you have,
The only proof
of extraterrestrial life, and you're going to go let him, without you being there, make a copy of it and then bring it back.
Well, okay, there are some problems with this, but maybe
I'm a trusting guy.
But maybe Guy's just super trusting. Right.
However, even I would not allow my one and only photo of extraterrestrials to go with one Roy Fisk.
Yeah. Well, you just didn't know Fisky like everybody else.
Apparently, I did not know Fisky.
And the story goes that, and you can see this coming a mile away. You probably know
it disappears.
Fisk, the picture, never heard from again.
So, is there any proof that there is ever a Roy Fisk?
Oh yeah, Oh yeah. So
Because I'm going to assume these researchers looked into this.
they did. You ever heard of the researcher Stanton Friedman,
Yes.
famous UFO researcher?
The guy who really, or one of the main guys who popularized Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while and he was friends with Leonard Stringfeld.
Yeah.
And so when they were working on this story for his book, Charlotte Mann contacts not Milton Friedman.
Stanton Friedman.
So they contact Stanton Friedman, and he's helping them research the book, and he gets this guy's name, this Walter Wayne Fisk, and he decides he was gonna track him down and get this picture back. So, so he does just that. He gets this guy's name, and he's living in like Albuquerque, New Mexico, someplace like that. And so he proceeds to start. I would call it harassing, but I'm guessing Stanton Friedman called it just trying to get to the bottom of things, harassing this guy for this picture. And apparently, after contacting him several times, um, calling him up, bothering him, this Fisk guy's like, "Listen, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I got no picture. Leave me alone before I get a restraining order." And so yeah, so either Fisk was in on it, took the picture, gave it to the authorities, kept it himself, worked with a Men in Black and was a government agent, or was just some dude who got caught up in a story, had no idea really what this crazy UFO investigator was talking about,
And was being harassed.
and was just being harassed in the late 80s, early 90s. So you take that for what it's worth. And a side note, and I found this interesting, Pastor Rick,
Yes.
is that the only other reference to this story in official documents comes from something called the MJ-12 papers.
Yes. Which Stanton Friedman was a big believer in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the MJ-12 papers, just to summarize, were supposedly the secret UFO organization, and the papers were held at the National Archives, and some super secret, deep throaty kind of undercover mole notified Stanton Friedman and the gang that these files were available. They went to the National Archives, got them, and they, from what I understand, are just bad photocopies and manipulated.
From what I understand, they're almost guaranteed
Fake.
to be faked.
But yet this is mentioned in those.
All right. So to kind of wrap this up here,
Right?
we have a story supposedly from a respected pastor who said that he saw aliens in 1941.
Yeah.
But the only proof that this occurred is his granddaughter says that this was a story.
And she did get it from her grandmother, Floy. The Reverend Huffman died in like the late 50s.
Okay.
She lived on, his wife Floy lived on until 84, 85-ish.
Okay.
And when she was dying of cancer, this Charlotte claims that she was sitting by her grandmother's bedside and said, "Grandma, I know there's a story. I hear the parts that I already know. Can you fill in any of the blanks?" And that's where some of these blanks got filled in from her grandmother Floy as she was lying on her deathbed. So it was basically a deathbed confession.
All right. So we have a granddaughter who says that her grandmother told her this story and that
It was family knowledge.
and that she saw a photo. Did she actually see the photo?
She claims she remembers seeing a photo with scalloped edges, the normal old-timey photos of it. She couldn't remember exactly what was on it.
But her dad never talked about it.
No.
Who supposedly owned it and gave it to poor.
And used to whip it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the only evidence we have is this granddaughter who says that this was a family story. She saw a photo and her grandmother said, yes, indeed, this really happened. And that's it.
It is. And not to pour more cold water on the story, but Charlotte Mann, the granddaughter who obviously the story orbits around, was a big fan of the book Communion in the 80s.
No.
Yeah. Shocking, huh?
Shocking.
Pastor Rick, what's on the cover of the book Communion?
Well, probably the most unsettling picture of a gray alien ever published. It's given more people nightmares than I can count.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a book that she really touched something in her. Now she says it's because of this experience. One could also say the book caused her to then believe this experience happened.
So,
Or at least piece things together in a way that goes along with aliens.
all right, I got two questions. One, do any other family members say that this is a family story?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They say so. There definitely was a plane crash. There are records in the Cape Girardeau uh, police fire files that there indeed was a crash in sometime around the spring of 1941. The files place it around Easter, which is how we get the Easter date. All the family had was it was spring of 41, but the police files, investigators have found that there was a accident, a plane crash, and not interestingly, I would suppose, is that the military responded to the plane crash and had the firemen sign a non-disclosure agreement. Now, again, there was that Sykeston Army Airfield, wasn't an Air Force then, but Army Airfield nearby, and it was the
build up to
World War II.
Yeah.
It could conceivably have been something from that military buildup crashed that they were just wanting to keep on the down low. But then there's another more, I think, silly explanation for what happened, very much aligned to this, and and living near an airport, Pastor Rick, you'll find this humorous. So at Sykeston Army Airfield, one of the countermeasures that they were coming up with for the pending war was using mirrors to shine light to send signals back and forth and or to blind pilots that were flying airplanes. And the thought is that by doing that at the airfield, they blinded the aliens. And much like you don't want to blind a pilot with a laser pointer, you blinded the aliens with flashing mirrors. They drove that UFO right into the ground.
So you're telling me somebody has the technology to fly light years across the galaxy to visit us, and
They're taken out with a mirror,
and you get taken out by a compact?
That's speculation. Yeah.
You know what? Weirder things have happened in the world.
Oh, right? I mean, who am I, right? I don't know. So that's another theory. But yeah, so there is no real hard evidence, like light evidence, maybe. I mean, or evidence at all. So
could you imagine? It didn't even take a laser pointer to bring down a UFO.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
no wonder they crash all over the place.
I guess a bigger question I have is if the photographer had the original and the negative, what happened to those?
I have no idea. Thanks for asking that, Pastor Rick.
And why didn't the newspaper publish it? Because if you ran even if these were taken and the government said don't take these are secret pictures, you run a picture on the front page of your newspaper of aliens, and they're legitimate aliens. Do you not think you would make so much money off that? It doesn't matter what the government does. Throw me in jail for a year.
That's
I don't
a good
care.
question. That's a question I had not thought of. I don't know an answer to that. But it'd be worth the penalty, for whatever penalty it is, to be world famous.
Well, I'm not getting the answer right away quick.
So yeah, I have no idea what happened to that guy.
I'll find anything.
So I'm just going to say
the Google machine's not finding anything. 2 AIs are not finding anything.
So the Men in Black did their thing. They worked their magic on Frawny. The 40s and 50s were a good time for nicknames.
The legendary photos from the alleged 1941 Cape Girardeau UFO supposedly showing 2 men are missing with the whereabouts unknown. Although drawings exist and stories persist, they The original photos took the photos, making copies for himself. And the local minister was called to the scene.
Have you seen those drawings?
Yeah, the original photo vanished with their current location unknown, although some believe the military took them, enforcing secrecy, according to KFVS 12 and KVS, what's the TV station, or radio station. Reverend Huffman's account. Huffman recounted the event to his wife. The FBI and the Air Force state they have no records of the incident, with no official documents confirming the crash. Local church, fire, and police records from 1941 collaborate that an unusual event did happen, and the military arrived, according to the Southwest Arrow. The alleged 1941 event predates the mystery of the missing photos remains central to the legend, with believers pointing to the lack of official records as proof of a successful government cover-up. All right, so now we know they're missing. Yeah, nobody knows where any of the photos would be.
But to make up for them, now that we're looking at it, did you see that really awesome drawing that Charlotte Mann made of the photo on the back of a napkin?
It's convincing.
It is a convincing napkin picture.
So she drew what she remembered the photo looking like in,
yes.
I am not exaggerating, literally drew stick figures.
Yes.
It's the most convincing piece of UFO evidence I have ever seen.
In a third grade kind of way.
I got to tell you, I taught the little kids Sunday school class on Sunday, and we're talking, we're going from like fourth grade all the way to preschool in there.
Right.
And I saw a lot better renditions of people
than a grown adult did of that picture. Yeah.
Wow. You know,
I don't know, looking at that drawing, why you're not a believer. It's made a believer of me. I say that.
It is definitely very believable. Almost to the point of eerie.
It really is a likeness.
Yeah. It's a likeness of something. All right, so that's all the evidence we got. Is the testimony. Now, how come none of the other grandkids or anybody else in this family has come forward? It's just Charlotte.
My understanding is they have that. They haven't come forward saying they're aliens, right? But they have come forward saying, yeah, there was something that parents talked about, that something had happened. Why the rest of them don't remember this, I don't know. I mean, it could have been because it was Charlotte's dad, and Charlotte's just, I have no idea. I don't know. It's a little odd. I'll give you that.
So could it be that
she's cray-cray?
Well, all right. So this is how I look at it. You got really 3 choices.
Okay.
1, it's true.
And if that's the case, the world as we know it is completely changed.
2, she's lying for whatever reason. She's making it all up.
Either she's mentally ill, or
she's making it up.
Just making it up.
Or 3, she's confused.
Oh, she could be. And I would go with the confused.
That there was some story, maybe there was a plane crash, that there, from the little research I've done here, it looks like that there is some evidence that maybe something did happen that night.
Absolutely.
Something did crash, and maybe that story got conflated with her interest in UFOs, and in her mind, they merged into what was, let's say, a small plane crash has now become a UFO crash. You know,
I think it's the confused,
because we're not misinterpreting what she's trying to say. This
Correct.
is pretty clear what she's trying to say. So, honestly, I got to go with on this one. I think she's just, she's confused. I think there's probably,
but she's sincere.
I think she's probably sincere, but you can get confused on a story and then truly believe something happened that never happened.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's sort of like, have you ever, I had this happen a couple years ago. I was driving through Grove City and went by a part of Grove City, and it didn't look like what I thought it should look like.
It was a part that had been there when we were kids?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, no, these buildings are wrong. Well, clearly these are old buildings. They weren't.
They didn't rearrange them.
They didn't rearrange these buildings. It was just in my mind.
Yeah.
When I thought of something, I had flipped which block these things were on, right?
Right.
So I think that happens. And with memory, memory isn't like a vault, right? That just records everything. Every time you think of something, you retrieve it and then you save it back, along with whatever new thoughts you have about it. And so people's memories drift. And I remember once visiting a woman, and she was in her 90s, and she had one story that she told pretty much every time I visited her. And over a period of like 2 years, I listened as the story drifted. And eventually I became part of that story.
Oh, that's interesting.
Clearly, I was not there when this event took place.
Right.
But over the period of like 2 years, she had worked me into the story. And it was it was cute. It was really, really cute. So
And I would agree with you. I think that's kind of where we're at with this.
Yeah.
And the fact that she had an interest in aliens to begin with, kind of all kind of dovetails to where we're at, right?
But one thing that I really do like about the story is that it shows um, Reverend Huffman being caring about creatures who were different than him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially these old gray guys, which in most stories kind of get a bad rap. Not that I'm saying if they really exist and they're really kidnapping people that they're great things, entities, whatever they would be.
Whatever they would be.
But just really like that aspect of the story, as a pastor. All right, and that is the 1941 Cape Girardeau UFO crash. A big thank you for listening. And if you are looking for a church home, I would invite you to join us here at Groveport United Methodist, either online or in person, every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Until next time, for my brother Rob, I am Rick. Take care, and remember, if you run across a broken down UFO on the side of the road, lend a hand if you can, or a tentacle, or
Whatever you got.
whatever it is you own, because we are all in this together. So, see you next time.